In a bustling city mall, a single moment of unchecked anger unraveled a chain of events that exposed prejudice, power, and the weight of hidden truths. A store manager, driven by frustration, slapped a black woman in a heated exchange, unaware that she was not just a customer but the billionaire owner of the entire retail empire, poised to turn his world upside down. Amara Ndidi walked into the high-end department store on a crisp autumn morning, her presence unassuming yet commanding. At 42, she had built an empire from the ground up, her name synonymous with luxury retail across 3 continents. But today, she wasn't the polished CEO in a tailored suit, gracing boardrooms or charity galas. She wore a simple navy blazer, jeans, and a silk scarf, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. To the untrained eye, she was just another shopper, blending into the crowd of well-dressed patrons browsing designer racks. Amara preferred it that way. She often visited her stores incognito to observe operations, gauge customer experiences, and ensure her vision of excellence was upheld. The store, Luxe Emporium, was one of her flagship locations, a gleaming monument to her success. Its marble floors sparkled under chandeliers, and the air carried the subtle scent of lavender from curated diffusers. Amara's company, Ndidi Enterprises, owned hundreds of such stores, but this one held sentimental value. It was the first she'd opened a decade ago. Today's visit wasn't planned. She'd been in the city for a meeting and decided to stop by, curious about recent reports of declining customer satisfaction. As she moved through the aisles, her sharp eyes caught details others might miss. A display slightly askew, an associate chatting instead of assisting, and a faint tension in the air. She paused near the women's designer section, where a young couple was debating over a handbag. Amara smiled faintly, remembering her own early days hustling to afford such luxuries. Her journey from a small-town entrepreneur to a billionaire was a story of grit, not luck, though few knew the sacrifices behind it. Near the cash registers, a commotion drew her attention. A customer, a middle-aged woman with a sharp bob, was arguing with a sales associate over a return. The associate, a young man named Tyler, looked flustered, his hands fumbling with the receipt. Standing nearby was the store manager, Greg Hammond, a man in his late 30s with a polished demeanor but a tight jaw that betrayed his irritation. Amara lingered, pretending to browse a rack of scarves, her ears tuned to the exchange. "This bag is defective," the customer insisted, her voice rising. "The stitching came apart after one use. I want a refund." Tyler glanced at Greg, who stepped forward, his smile thin. "Ma'am, our policy is clear. Returns must be within 30 days with proof of purchase. Your receipt shows this was bought 3 months ago." The woman's face reddened. "I was traveling. I couldn't return it sooner. This is unacceptable for a store like this." Greg's tone hardened. "I'm sorry, but rules are rules. We can't make exceptions." Amara frowned slightly. She'd trained her managers to prioritize customer experience, even bending policies when reasonable. Greg's rigidity was a red flag. She stepped closer, intending to observe how he'd handle the escalation, when the woman's voice grew louder, drawing a small crowd. "You're just trying to rip me off," the customer snapped. "This store is a joke." Greg's composure cracked. "Ma'am, if you don't lower your voice, I'll have to ask you to leave." Amara's brow furrowed. De-escalation was key in her training protocols, but Greg's tone was confrontational, almost daring the woman to push further. The customer, now furious, slammed the bag on the counter. "I'm not going anywhere until I get my money back." The situation spiraled faster than Amara expected. Greg's face flushed, and in a moment that stunned everyone, he reached across the counter and slapped the woman's cheek. Not hard, but enough to silence the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The woman staggered back, hand to her face, eyes wide with shock. Tyler froze, and other employees exchanged panicked glances. Amara's heart raced, not from fear but from a cold, calculated anger. She stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting through the tension like a blade. "Excuse me, what just happened?" Greg turned, his expression a mix of defiance and embarrassment. He didn't recognize Amara, and why would he? She rarely appeared in her stores as the owner, preferring to let her executives handle visibility. To him, she was just another customer sticking her nose in. "This doesn't concern you," Greg said, his voice clipped. She was causing a scene. Amara's eyes narrowed. "You just assaulted a customer. That concerns everyone here." The woman, still clutching her cheek, nodded vigorously. "He hit me. I want him fired." Greg scoffed, his arrogance resurfacing. "Lady, you don't get to make demands. And you," he pointed at Amara, "stay out of this or I'll have security escort you both out." Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. She wasn't one for theatrics, but the audacity of his words lit a fire in her. She pulled out her phone not to call security, but to text her executive assistant Maya, who was always on standby. "Get me the regional director. Now," she typed, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline. The crowd grew, phones raised to record the scene. Greg, sensing the attention, tried to regain control. "Everyone back to shopping. This is under control." But his voice wavered, and Amara noticed the sweat beading on his forehead. "Under control," Amara repeated, her tone icy. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your career." Greg laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "And who are you to tell me that? Some random shopper?" Amara didn't answer immediately. She let the weight of his words hang, her gaze locked on his. The regional director, Claire Voss, would be there in minutes. Amara's text had ensured it. But she wanted Greg to stew in his own arrogance a little longer. The slapped customer, whose name Amara later learned was Linda, was now crying, her anger giving way to humiliation. Amara turned to her, softening her voice. "Are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" Linda shook her head, wiping her eyes. "I just want justice. He can't get away with this." "He won't," Amara said firmly, her words carrying a promise she intended to keep. Greg rolled his eyes. "Justice. She was screaming at my staff. I was protecting them." "Protecting them." Amara's voice rose just enough to draw more eyes. "You assaulted a customer in a store that prides itself on service. You don't get to justify that." Greg's face twisted. "You're making this worse. Leave now, or I'm calling security." Before Amara could respond, Claire Voss strode through the entrance, her heels clicking with purpose. Claire, a seasoned executive in her 50s, had worked with Amara for years and knew her low-profile habits. She spotted Amara immediately, her eyes widening slightly before she masked her reaction. "Ms. Ndidi," Claire said, her tone professional but laced with urgency. "I got your message. What's going on?" The name Ndidi hit Greg like a freight train. His jaw slackened, and the color drained from his face. He knew that name, everyone in the company did. Amara Ndidi wasn't just a name on a corporate letterhead. She was the visionary who'd turned a single boutique into a global brand. And he'd just called her a random shopper. Amara didn't acknowledge Greg's reaction. She turned to Claire, her voice steady. "Mr. Hammond assaulted a customer and threatened to have me removed. I want a full report on this incident, and I want it handled immediately." Claire nodded, already pulling out her tablet to take notes. "Of course, Ms. Ndidi. I'll ensure security reviews the footage and interviews all witnesses." Greg stammered. "Ms. Ndidi? I didn't know." Amara cut him off, her gaze piercing. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat people with respect. Your actions reflect on this company. My company." The crowd murmured, phones still recording. Linda, the slapped customer, looked between Amara and Greg, piecing it together. "You're the owner?" she asked, her voice trembling. Amara nodded. "I am. And I'm deeply sorry for what you've experienced. This isn't how we operate." Linda's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Greg tried to speak, his voice hoarse. "Ms. Ndidi, I didn't mean, it was a mistake." "A mistake." Amara's tone was calm but unrelenting. You struck a customer. You dismissed me without a second thought. That's not a mistake. That's a failure of character. Claire stepped in, her voice firm. Mr. Hammond, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Hand over your badge and keys. Greg fumbled with his lanyard, his hands shaking. The reality of his actions was sinking in, and the weight of Amara's presence made it unbearable. He handed over his badge, avoiding her eyes, and muttered, "I'm sorry." Amara didn't respond. She turned to Linda, offering a card from her purse. "This is my direct contact. We'll cover any medical or legal expenses you need, and I'll personally ensure your refund is processed." Linda took the card, her gratitude evident. "I didn't expect. Thank you, Ms. Ndidi." As security escorted Greg out, Amara addressed the crowd, her voice carrying authority. "I apologize to everyone who witnessed this. Lux Emporium is committed to excellence, and what happened today was unacceptable. We'll make this right." The crowd dispersed, some still whispering, others posting their videos online. Amara stayed, speaking with Linda and Claire to ensure every detail was handled. She learned Linda was a teacher, saving for months to buy the handbag as a gift for her daughter's graduation. Amara not only refunded the purchase but gifted Linda a replacement bag and a voucher for future shopping. By the time Amara left the store, the incident was trending on social media. Clips of Greg's outburst and Amara's calm authority spread like wildfire, sparking debates about workplace conduct, customer service, and accountability. Ndidi Enterprises issued a statement condemning Greg's actions, announcing a review of training protocols, and reaffirming their commitment to inclusivity. Greg's suspension became termination after the investigation confirmed his actions. Amara didn't revel in his downfall. She saw it as a necessary step to protect her company's values. She met with her executive team the next day, implementing mandatory sensitivity and de-escalation training across all stores. She also launched a customer feedback initiative, ensuring no one felt dismissed again. Linda became an unexpected ally, sharing her story in a local news interview, praising Amara's integrity. The two stayed in touch, with Amara quietly funding a scholarship in Linda's daughter's name. For Amara, it wasn't about publicity, it was about righting a wrong. The incident faded from headlines, but its impact lingered. Amara continued her unannounced visits, a reminder to her staff that leadership wasn't about titles but actions. And in every store she entered, employees whispered her name with a mix of awe and caution, knowing the billionaire owner could be anyone: a shopper, a critic, or a force to be reckoned with.